Welcome everyone. Thank you for the joining the February 28th meeting of the City of Inglewood Budget Advisory Committee. With Bill being out tonight, I'll be stepping in and trying to fill his shoes. He did approve let's start with a roll call and attendance. So Josh Newell, Vice Chair, present.
Peter Eckel, Budget Advisory Committee.
Suzanne Dirksen, Budget Advisory Committee.
Denny Nolan, Budget Administrator, present.
Tyson Thornburg, Budget Financial Analyst.
Tim Dodd, Deputy City Manager.
Amanda Arns, Communications and Marketing Specialist.
Chris Harguth, Communications Director.
Madeline Hinkfist, Neighborhood Engagement Program Manager.
Steve Ward, Council Liaison.
And into the cyber world.
Jackie, you're muted.
Jackie Lowe, Finance Director.
Sean Lewis, City Manager.
And James, did you say something? I think you might be muted.
No, I think I'm on. James Horan, Budget Advisory Committee. Sorry, I can't be there in person. I'm in Montana on business.
No worries. We appreciate you all calling in tonight. So thank you for that. We'll start by approving the January 24th minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Second? I second. All right, all in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, that's approved. Thank you. Tonight, new business, we're hearing from neighborhoods. Director Harguth is here with his team. Thank you. So we'll get it turned over for you to hear from communications and the rest of the team in neighborhoods.
Okay. So our agenda this evening, we're going to talk about the neighborhood's outcome area, the communications department,
So these are the neighborhoods ways that we will know that we are succeeding. So sorry, I can't read that. I'm going to look at my notes. So this data is taken from the citizen survey that goes out every 2 years. And it's great to see that 73% of those surveyed like living in their neighborhood. The neighborliness of Inglewood residents have also increased, and residents' connection and engagement with their neighborhood is at 65%, which I really give credit to the neighbor to neighbor programs that the resources program has launched, like the grants, the block party trailer, the backyard movie kit, and other things like that.
On that comparison to benchmark, where's the benchmark being pulled from?
Tim, you have. That's a national benchmark.
Yeah,
right?
so the kind of crib notes version of that is, so we're part of something called the National Citizen Survey.
Okay.
It's been around for quite some time. The way our contract with them works, and we use them for other things. So actually the survey is, I would say dirt cheap for a survey because we use them. It's about 3,200 or so for the survey because we use them for so many other things.
Yeah.
So one of the things we pay for is for them to benchmark against their other clients. However, we do not pay enough, let's say, for them to share exactly who those clients are. That would be a significant cost for us to do that. And even then, there's restrictions on what they share. So it's benchmarked on the national average, but the national average being national average of participants in this program,
Okay.
which there are, I think it's about, I want to say it's about 300 or so cities. It might be less than that, but
Do they all tend to be comparable size cities when we're looking at
all
it?
over
or
the
is it
place.
all over the
There's
place?
cities
So,
of 5,000 people. There's cities of 1 million people in it. So.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so under the neighborhood outcome area, the neighborhood resources program will focus on the neighbor to neighbor goals. We really want to ensure that neighbors are connected to one another in Inglewood. So over the next few years, we are going to publicize the neighborhood map, implement the new neighborhood signage program, create a strategic plan for neighborhood resources, and also continue to fund the neighborhood grant programs.
Any questions about any of those specific programs, or we can take those at the end as well?
How do we
It's hard to
measure the
read.
success of these grant programs and, what's kind of a general idea for me to understand that?
Which specific program?
Well, I mean, what would you say is the most popular or most participated in?
What'd you say?
I would
No,
say.
go ahead, just say go
Okay,
ahead.
I would say the Get to Know Your Neighbor Grant Program, and that is where residents can apply for $100, $300, or $500, and they can have like a neighborhood social. And so they can buy food. Some people bring in music or other activities. So I would say that is going to be the most popular. And we measure success by how many people are applying and how much money is being given out probably every year.
I think what I was really impressed with was, for instance, the block party trailer was reserved 15 out of 18 weekends, I think.
Yes, it's like 88% of weekends.
I have been
available.
to two block parties.
Look at that. That's great.
The backyard movie kit saw similar results. So
Yeah.
We were very pleased, yeah.
So the coordination between even the backyard movie kits and the Know Your Neighbor grant, but really the Know Your Neighbor grant and the block party trailer, are you guys marketing or putting that out there together to say you can get a trailer plus a grant for this? Or are they just really two independent programs that, people can walk through either door and just experience the programs, separate of each other?
I would say a little bit of both. On the website, it's marketed on the same area of the website. And then also when someone either applies for a grant or reserves the trailer, they get an email with the other programs that they
Awesome.
can take advantage of.
And that's good to know because neighbors south of me are planning one and the ones north of me have a block party every year. So I love the trail. I think it's a fantastic thing for the communities and that neighborhood drive that you guys are doing. So.
Awesome.
All right, the communications department. So just give you a minute to look at our organizational chart. And again, neighborhood resources is a division of communications. Let you read our mission statement.
And Tim, when we're looking at the neighborhood strategic goal, other than the communications neighborhood resources, is there any other departments that really play big in this goal, or is this really?
It's really primarily driven by communications now. There are a few things that are, I'd say the other departments that touch it really are police and community development. There's a few metrics involving aesthetics, so like code enforcement, things like that. That's obviously in police. There's a few things involving layout and placemaking that involve community development, but it's say 90.
And I'm saying
90
public works, but the way.
And public works, yeah. But I'd say 90% or more is communication.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
No, I appreciate that clarification. Thank you.
But a lot of the ones that are assigned to communications, there are secondary departments that we just mentioned.
And you'll see some of those slides here in a moment. Oh, that's right. We're back to neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Just briefly, we're going to talk about major accomplishments.
So the major accomplishments in neighborhoods, council adopted the new neighborhood map. We launched the neighborhood improvement grant, and this year 4 larger scale projects, beautification type projects were completed around Englewood by different neighborhoods. We launched the backyard movie kit. We hosted 9 neighborhood nights in different parks, and we also launched the neighborhood signage program, and we will hopefully have a sign in the ground in the next few months.
2 sides.
2 signs, yes, in the ground, next few months.
I know we talked a lot about signage when we were looking at capital expenditures last year. The neighborhood signage program, can you tell a little bit more about that and how complex and in depth, I guess it is with the signage?
Yeah, I mean, well, so council allocated, I think it was 2 years ago, Tim,
Yes.
35,000 for a neighborhood signage program. And maybe you want to quickly talk about the criteria to qualify for neighborhood signs.
So we are launching I guess the first neighborhood we're working with is the Forest Hill neighborhood. And they're kind of our pilot neighborhood to see like how this all works. So they have to be a registered neighborhood with the neighborhood resources program with the program. And then I work with them and Public Works to figure out where the signs go. Forest Hill actually held a contest, but right now we have different designs of signs, and the neighborhood can just choose what design that they would like and kind of where it goes. But we all work together to make that happen.
One of my favorite things about our not only the neighborhood signs, but all of our wayfinding and placemaking to this day have all been fabricated in Englewood.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's Englewood businesses. We're fortunate to have those types of businesses in the city. So,
And overall, like, I love the approach of the neighborhoods, the passion coming from, the approach to the neighborhood namings, from last year. One thing that I don't know why it popped in my mind, I remember walking through, Boston, Bunker Hill. And I looked at one of those, just the street signs, and it had a commemoration plaque of a boxer on top who grew up in the neighborhood. Funny enough, my aunt and uncle lived in the neighborhood, and the name on the plaque was the grandfather of a coworker of mine. Like, just complete randomness, but like, what a cool little thing to like just discover. And I don't know if there's any way to incorporate some more history into the signage program, especially as you guys are developing it, and maybe some of the, people history as well as the location history into some of these, signage to kind of tie. Each neighborhood could have different signs, but you all have this commonality between it where we get to learn more about it. So just something that popped up.
yeah, that's one of the really kind of cool things about the Forest Hill signage is that they did incorporate elements from their history
Okay.
into their signage. Yeah, so when you see it, it's pretty cool. right.
I had a quick question.
Sure.
Could you say a little bit more about how other neighborhoods get involved? Do you have kind of a schedule on how you're rolling this out? I know a lot of folks in my neighborhood are pretty interested in this, and we're in the Scarretts area.
Yeah, that's great to hear. So in this spring, we will be just promoting it on social media and in the magazine. And there will be an application posted on our website. And you fill it out, and then we can get moving, get the process started on creating a neighborhood sign and getting that process started.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, major accomplishments for the communications department. We published 4 editions of the Englewood magazine, which that's been ongoing since 2017. We created, mostly Amanda, a new communication request platform / procedure, which has been really important for our department so that we can track every request that comes into the department, and we know how long those requests took. So, for future asks of the budget and city council, we, this year, you'll see in a future slide, we need more help. So this has really helped us kind of demonstrate that. Our wayfinding and placemaking program, you can see a photo there. That will be the new secondary gateway sign for the city. Those have all been fabricated, and we're just now getting ready to schedule the install. And those designs came out of the wayfinding and placemaking master plan process. So we're excited to get those out there. We created an accessibility plan draft for our websites and all of our digital platforms. And if you have questions about that, Amanda will take those. We drafted, or we're in the process of drafting a new branding campaign that does not include logos. That's more about messaging and how we brand the city at large. We updated our brand standards. We've added some fonts, some colors, just a little bit more flexibility. We managed all our social media channels and the city website. We created and chaired new social media and events committees. And that's really led to a lot more collaboration within the city. And then finally published the children's art calendar, and that has been Madeline's project. So can I answer any questions?
I like a lot of the Englewood Instagram posts.
Oh, great.
And I think they're nice. A few times a week, 2-3 times a week, I think I see them. They give some insight and maybe some feedback to y'all too. I don't know. That may go both ways, but.
And we're hopefully reaching a new audience as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice for me because I get on Instagram maybe once a day and I'll see something. It's fun.
Well, that's good feedback. Thanks.
Yeah.
Anything else I can answer?
I've always been curious on the children's art calendar. We have some really gifted artists. And the last 2 years, I've seen pieces that I would actually purchase if they were offered for sale.
I did too.
So I wonder if we might consider, I don't know, either offering prints or somehow otherwise, monetizing that for the kids to inspire young artists.
I think it's a great idea. I was actually concerned that some of those might go missing that were hanging down there.
They're remarkably good.
Yeah, I agree.
We talked a lot about, the communications as it relates to neighborhoods, and I know this is a little off topic for the strategic. What do you guys have responsibility over for communications as it relates to, business development, bringing, new businesses and growth to Inglewood?
Well, we work very closely with the Economic Development Division and Darren Hollingsworth. We work closely with Lindsay Runyon, the Chamber of Commerce, and with Hillary Portel and the EDDA. We support them, they support us, and we meet regularly. So you probably noticed in the Inglewood magazine, we have, each edition will have a feature spread on Inglewood businesses.
And I love the Instagram videos on businesses, especially tying the history and things like that. And so, what kind of split, is it 50-50 between the neighborhoods and kind of community involvement in the business side, or how would you say you're balanced on that? And is that the right balance from what you're experiencing?
I wouldn't necessarily say Madeline's all that involved with the businesses. I think that falls more on the communication side.
Okay.
One of the things you'll see likely coming soon is a new Made in Inglewood campaign that we're excited about, that I think you'll like, with a lot of guerrilla marketing, and we're really excited about it to launch that. So
That's awesome.
And that will be solely focused on business and industry and the creative side of Inglewood.
Definitely.
That's cool because we have such a diverse business and industry represented in our city.
And that's what we want to make sure people understand. Yeah.
And I just think of all the cool, socially minded ones, the brewabilities, the Cafe 180s, and like being able to highlight some of those, smaller, unique ones that I think will push some of that business focus to say, like, what a cool community to be a part of. And awesome. Yeah.
Anything else I can answer?
No, that covers it.
I'll just give you a moment to kind of look at this slide. We did return about $1,100 to the fund balance.
So personal and staffing was almost on the mark. How are you? And I'm looking a couple ahead and I see more support, but how have you been on staffing over the last year?
We've been fully staffed. Yep.
Anything stand out that you think has led to that, situation where you have been able to stay fully staffed? Because that has been a struggle from a lot of other departments.
I'm not sure.
Like, a lot of other departments are struggling with staying fully staffed. So is there anything unique? There's always a million factors into what leads to it, but anything that you kind of identified that you think leads to the fact that you have stayed fully staffed during, more difficult hiring markets and staffing markets?
I think the primary reason is we're a small staff, so that's helpful. And I think that they all like their jobs. They
We've
like
got a
what
great
they
small
do.
team. We get along with each other. We bounce ideas off each other, and it's just been one of the best places I've worked.
Okay.
So
And
I love it here.
three of our employees of our small department live in the city.
Okay.
So
That helps out too.
yeah, it does.
Awesome. So collaboration and kind of that positive environment has helped out. So
I
I
just
just
think
think that's good.
and the culture that, I don't want to embarrass Sean and Tim, but the culture that they've created, it fits well with our staff and,
Yeah.
the people who work here. So.
Okay. Thank you for that insight.
Go ahead, yeah, please. So our challenges, some of these are similar to last year, and maybe I've added one, but the paper market has been very volatile. I think we've seen that. Knock on wood, it's kind of leveled out. So what we paid in 2022 has not yet, we haven't seen another paper increase in 2023, so that's good. And just the Inglewood magazine costs in general. We work with a consultant who does the graphic design. You've seen that publication. It's a monster. So we've taken on some of that work in-house to offset some of those costs, and so far it's working. So but the increasing number of our service requests in the communications department is skyrocketing, and we've got a slide to demonstrate that next. So that's why I put it, we need additional staffing. And then limited funding for Madeline's grant programs. There's a big demand, and we're at capacity with those, so we could use some more funding for the neighborhood grant programs. And I put a note that in 2022, we had a strategic communications plan produced with an outside consultant, and that consultant did recommend that we hire a communications manager in the department. So this is a slide that we can do some reporting. We use Asana for our communications requests. It's kind of Asana on steroids. But this kind of, if you want to take a moment, you can look at this. In January of this year was the most service requests we've ever had in the department. I'll let you look at this, and then the next slide will kind of demonstrate how our requests are rising.
I'm not as familiar with this maybe as I should be. But I mean, can you give me an example or two of what a communication request might entail?
Oh, I can do, well, I'm gonna let you.
They go from anywhere, from anyone in the department. For instance, some of the ones we have now is our sustainability coordinator is marketing an EV event, so they need graphics created, things like that. So they put request those to anywhere from, you submitted an email that needed to go out to all staff tomorrow at 8 a.m. Schedule going out. So like anything from internal emails to larger campaigns to graphic design requests, social media post requests.
Okay, video production.
Yeah.
And we do make note in the request that, hey, this is something that took me less than 5 minutes, or this is something that took me more than 2 weeks. So we have an idea. So if we track it department by department, that might not be representative, because like Broken Tee Golf Course, they're our primary client as far as requests, but a lot of the requests take less than 10 minutes.
And they really developed a process in terms of how they collect and use and analyze data that multiple other departments have looked to them, as this is as an example. And I asked Chris, I think a few weeks ago, if we have anyone who's going outside just sending emails, and it seems like it's happening a little bit, but really not much at all anymore, right?
Oh, as far as making requests?
Yeah.
Hardly at all, yeah. So this, if you wouldn't mind advancing, yeah. So this just kind of shows you, since we launched our request platform, this is how our service requests have increased.
And that was a year ago, is that what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Just about March,
exactly.
mid-March last year, we launched.
The problem is you made it too easy for me to ask. So everyone's like, oh, this is a perfect system.
So a lot of this just reflects adoption, not necessarily an increase in need, right?
I think there's an increase in need.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I think this has really helped people understand that what our capabilities are. I mean, you've probably seen over the years that communications department has evolved from a single person to the staff and a neighborhood resources division to, multiple staff members.
So the things that people might have been putting out on themselves earlier that, maybe they had incorrect information or weren't up to our brand standards are now being approved and, shot through our department for approval and making sure everything's more cohesive.
Cool.
So you're tracking short time, long time. Are you tracking cost share per department to understand where the most hours are actually going to? Or is it not quite that granular in tracking hours yet?
Not quite that granular, but we do, well.
Yeah, we implemented the tracking system on like how long it takes per project in January this year. We should have done it, hindsight, we're just building the system to its capabilities. So
Yeah, one
next
step at
year
a
well
time.
have a better idea of department.
Next year
and
at
their
this
level of
meeting,
requests.
we do know the number of requests, but what's not reflected in there is the time for each department. So we're getting there.
Yeah.
Cool.
Capital project priorities. Oh, there's a picture of the
Yeah.
neighborhood sign. So that will
The
be the
Forest
first
Hill
neighborhood sign,
sign.
Forest Hill. So our ongoing wayfinding and placemaking efforts, you're going to see a lot of those signs being installed over the course of the next 3 or 4 months. The neighborhood signage and the neighborhood improvement grants. And any other questions we can answer for you?
Can we go back to your list of challenges, please?
Yeah.
One before that one. After that one, thank you. What is the annual cost of designing, printing, distributing the Inglewood magazine right now?
So the total cost, and so we're working with a new consultant. So the consultant is doing the The graphic design is about 10,000 and some project management. Then we have a copywriter, and she's doing maybe 65% of the writing. And that is 4,000 per issue. And then we have printing, and that's the big one. Printing is $20,000. And then we have postage.
So that's per issue.
Yeah, so, but the way I like to think about it, if you break it down to per household, what the magazine costs us, it's a couple bucks or less.
Right.
So this is the primary way, this is really the only way that we push information out to the entire city. This is it. That's it.
So 120,000 a year.
Yeah, roughly. Yeah.
Do we distribute the magazine to apartment complexes?
Yes.
So it goes out in bulk delivery through a geographic zone that includes the large apartment complexes that we have.
Yeah, so it goes out by, it's a, gosh, I can't remember what they call it, but it goes out, it's a postal patron
Okay.
system. So it doesn't go, so if you live in Inglewood or you have a business in Inglewood, you don't have a choice but to get the magazine. So we get maybe 1 or 2 phone calls a year. People say, can you remove me from the list? Well, there really isn't a list because that would be a tremendous amount of postage to send this first class. We couldn't do it. It would be cost prohibitive. So we have had issues with, we'll get phone calls. Most of the phone complaints we get, people saying, I didn't get my magazine. And so it's that postal route or that postal carrier. We don't know why. And so we do our best, but we actually oversaturate. So we actually go beyond the city limits a little bit. So.
Oh, really? Not to mention those that are available at Malley and the rec center and downstairs.
Right. And of course it's online. So.
Yeah.
And we have a VIP list, I should mention, that has a few thousand people on it as well.
Additional staff needed. Can you quantify that in terms of FTE or, I don't know, hours of consultants?
I think adding what we would need to do would be to add 1 FTE. Last year we did ask, we have 1 part-time employee. I think she works about just a little under 30 hours a week. And she supports golf and parks, recreation, and library with their marketing efforts. And that's only a part-time position. So ideally, in a perfect world, that would be a full-time position. And we would add another full-time position. And then I think we would be fully staffed. I think we would be good to go at that point.
I've got more, but I want to let the others. No? Okay. And then can I see Madeline's very first slide? Big yellow box. No, one more, that one. So the ones that stood out to me are overall appearance of Inglewood, well-designed neighborhoods, and preservation of historical or cultural character of the community. I'm curious when council saw this last and if community development has seen this as well.
Kim, that might be a question for you.
Yeah, well, yeah, so this is actually about to be updated. So in March, we're gonna be going back to council and asking them based on their feedback from the retreat and a few other checkpoints to revise the strategic plan for this year. It will include the new data for 2022 that was not included last year because we didn't have it. So it's done basically over the summer into the early fall. Council did receive a presentation from the organization that does the surveying work and I think it was in October, which was about a month and a half, 2 months after we got the initial data, after the survey was closed.
So they'll see it again, I'm sorry.
As part of the strategic plan, it'll be on March 20th.
Okay.
But they've already seen the 2022 data.
They saw the 2022 data in a report that was done by the vendor in October.
And community
October 10th.
development?
Oh, they saw it as part of, so all the directors get a copy of this. So it's actually on, I think it's on our website too, right, Chris?
Yes.
I mean, great place to live. I mean, that seems to stick out to me as pretty positive. I'm surprised some of these are lower, but anyway, not to get into the data and survey, but it's interesting.
Rezoning is a hot topic right now, and those specific measurements that I mentioned seem to be in direct conflict with what Gould Evans proposed to council a couple weeks ago.
That's all I got.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time
Yeah,
and
no, thank
the
you all.
wonderful information tonight.
Much appreciated.
All right, reviewing upcoming schedule. 28th, March 28th, we're gonna hear from safety. We'll have police and municipal courts. And then April 25th, sustainability. May, we get excited for capital projects. So we'll talk about more of that as we work towards it. Members' choice, any comment, anything for members' choice tonight?
We're at members' choice already.
We are, we're like, what a very. Unless you want to continue. That's a chance.
I have just one thing for the committee while we're all here. We just passed a budget supplemental, I think 2 weeks ago or the week before last. And that involved spending related to the new taxes that have come in. And as you know, this board would be the Citizen Audit Committee. Without going into too much detail, I was not in agreement with how those funds were allocated. So I'll be interested to hear the Budget Advisory Committee weigh in when the time comes on whether we are actually spending the money the way the citizens authorized. So if you have time, take a look at that budget supplemental. The discussion itself may be helpful, but I wanted to flag that for you so you know what's coming up.
So we got infrastructure and transportation on the 27th and safety, and I know both of those amendments were tied to those two departments.
Correct.
Is that the proper time to bring up those conversations?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, the budget supplemental was approved by the council majority. So it's how the money is going to get spent. But I would say if the members of the body or the body as a whole has a disagreement with how that's being done, that is specifically authorized in the ballot initiative. We need you to tell us.
And we
So-
definitely want to include that. So Tyson, do you mind including that in notes for both safety next month and on the 27th of June to make sure we have that for a new business conversation around those ballot measures and those responsibilities?
Because with respect to safety, correct me if I'm wrong or if this has been updated or changed, but there seems to have been some ambiguity about where traditional policing ends and alternative policing begins.
Therein lies the rub. Yes.
So maybe that's something we can push for when we meet in March.
I'm excited to pull back the onions of that, or the layers of that onion when we get into the complexities of what that's gonna look like, so.
Right.
That's helpful to know, and any information that can be provided to prep us for that, it sounds like it is enough of a conversation where you're requesting some, feedback. We'd appreciate appropriate information for that meeting to be
Yeah.
able to have the conversations.
Yeah, I'm confident that the police department administration will be happy to share with you what was allocated specifically, and I think that will inform the discussion pretty well. See, James has his hand raised.
Yeah, if I could just echo Josh's request, if there's any way we could get some of that information in advance of the
Yeah, okay.
meeting, that would be welcome.
There's a lot of things we could provide, and they're all public documents, obviously, but it would be good. Everything from the ballot language to past, presentations to council, memos written to council. Would that be helpful if we just link that all in one? It would be a lot of reading.
And it's challenged because you guys have, rules that you've got to walk in terms of how you talk about it and influence and bring it to our committee. So I understand a data dump kind of is what it is, but if the data dump's the most appropriate way, so be it. I think, and this goes back to our report last year, if there's any discussions outside of there through email, what's the appropriate way to be able to have those discussions through email, or is that off limits for any pre-discussion that we might have as related to this?
No more than two people in a meeting or an email conversation without it being a public open meetings request.
So when you say open meetings request, is that for, it's now public records through FOIA requests, or we actually have to log a meeting and allow other people to
We have to log.
technically join the email community?
Yeah, the law's been broken. Yeah, more than a quorum or more is communicating. So in other committees, the way boards and commissions, the way we've handled it is just having it go through the liaison. I mean, so if there's questions that you want answered or things you want a presentation on, you'd reach out to Jenny or Tyson, and then they would do the work of getting that for you, and then share it with the entire group.
So if you could just put that reminder that we can't reply to all on this, just so people don't do it, and then we can have that funnel for, questions and then one-on-one conversations.
We can send you the link to last meeting that
I think
that we had.
the budget supplemental itself would be probably the most helpful in this, what we approved, because we approved it without modification. So what was proposed in the packet was what got passed as the budget supplemental. And the council memo and the related materials explain how those specific tax funds are intended to be allocated.
Okay.
And if you have the time, I think it's useful to listen to that conversation you all had.
Sean, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, it sounds like we're wrapping this conversation up, but since we're not represented by legal at this meeting, I would just say we're getting close to open meetings, adding an item to the agenda here. But it sounds like we're wrapping up.
Yep, for note, it'll be added for future agendas so we can have the discussion, and information will be provided beforehand for the council or for the members to review. Ragan, anything else?
Yeah, Josh, I just wanted you, at the last meeting, I hope this is okay, that I bring it up, during Members' Choice, you had brought up that you had heard that the city of Littleton, was possibly turning or considering turning Santa Fe into a pedestrian boulevard. So I was able to research that, and I have an answer, if that's okay.
Yeah, I would actually love that. That'd be
Yeah, so that's not the case. So one planning commissioner mentioned during a public meeting that they were interested in the concept of turning Santa Fe into a boulevard with medians and access cuts. Not to say that's not where they might land, but that wasn't a policy decision or a proposal from the city. It was one member of an appointed board brought up that idea in a public setting. What they are looking at is doing what's called a cap and cover near the light rail station that's near Mineral, but on Santa Fe. And essentially that means where they may lower the roadway and then provide a cover on it for multimodal connection. So something like what was done at the I-70 or Central 70 project, that's the formal proposal that they're working through, that even hasn't gotten full buy-in yet, but that's what they're looking at. They're not, as a city, they're not looking at what was brought up.
And that's, I just knew it was lots of politics, down at the city level, and I didn't even realize the city of Littleton only covers just left or right of Santa Fe, doesn't actually push into the rest of, Littleton's postcode. So thank you for that, and something just to keep an eye on to see how
It's even more confusing than fake Inglewood. Fake Littleton is massive.
Yeah.
It's next to actual Littleton, so that makes it even more confusing.
Yeah, it's literally like 75% of what I thought was Littleton. It's not actually Littleton, and I was like, wait a second, all right. Awesome. Well, that puts us one last call for anything for Members' Choice. All right, we are wrapping up for the evening. Thank you all, and have a lovely night, lovely month.
Good night.
Night.
Good night.
Bye, Jack.
My mom and stepdad live right there in South Park, so everything that's